All right. All right, we're almost done with this set of stuff. All right, command line. So command line bash, if you're using Mac, it's now defaulted to ZSH. So it's basically bash, but with some extra flair. I'm actually going to share my whole screen now just to make it easier for you guys to see. There we go. Okay, and I'm actually going to tile this. Hold on a second, everyone. There we go. Okay, I know I kind of flipped the script over here, but that's all right. Cool. All right. So command line is this guy. Is this intimidating looking thing? Like it looks like you're like, if you didn't know anything about programming, you look like, oh, you're hacking or something like that, right? That's usually like I usually like to scare people. It's like, oh, look at this, you know, like, it's scary looking. It's basically, you can think of like bash, especially, or it's SSH now, but I'll say bash shell is on Unix computers, which include Mac computers and Linux computers, which is going to be, to be honest, the majority of your development as a data scientist. They actually perfectly match with each other in the sense that anything you could technically do on a Mac computer or a Linux computer, you can do completely with the shell. Not easily necessarily, but you can technically do it. Windows, I put a little asterisk on that. It's like you have something called the command prompt, but it's not the same level of connectedness as like it is for Unix systems, which is why actually we ask usually people to install git bash, which basically it simulates, shouldn't say simulate, but emulates this kind of interface to interact and stuff like this. And so that way your commands, for example, ls, cd, which we'll talk about in a second, those commands will work still on your git bash like emulator as it will on like a Unix computer, which I will say is useful. This can sometimes be intimidating for some people, but trust me, like getting used to it is actually a really good thing. It gives a lot of power to you and be able to control a lot of things that you wouldn't have to use. Like basically, instead of having a click and mouse stuff, you can tell the computer, do this exact thing. And the computer say, all right, I'll do whatever you say, whether that's right or wrong, or like, it says, oh, delete your whole file system. All right, I'll do it, and it'll just go for it. So it is a lot of power. But it's also a really useful tool. So we're going to talk about that next. But okay, I want to see what time it is. All right, got 15. All right, so we got 15 more minutes left of the hour. So we'll probably go through this command line stuff because I think this will be useful. And we'll probably take a break maybe at the hour 15-ish mark. Okay, so git bash, command line stuff. You'll hear me say command line. Like I said, it's really great for navigating, like for Linux, Unix computers, specific cloud servers. So I'm sure everyone's heard of like the cloud, right? Whether or not you know what the cloud is, right? When you hear cloud, I want you to now picture just another computer somewhere. Like that's really what the cloud is. It's just like, it's another computer. Like that's not like in front of you. So it turns out a lot of work being done in data science is in the cloud. Is that you're basically interacting, because basically you might have so much data or data coming in so quickly that it's not feasible for a single computer, even a really massive computer, to actually handle that data. So a lot of times you are, what we call like SSHing or remoting into a server. And most of the time it's going to be easiest to do it this way. And I say easiest in the sense that sometimes you can have a graphical user interface or a GUI, which means you can click your mouse and point all that good stuff. But sometimes all you got is this thing. You got the shell, and that's what you got. It really helps to help navigate it. So I like to say is practice the things that you need to do when you don't need to do them, right? So like if you have a little click and point that you can deal with, awesome. But if you can practice it when you don't have to rely just on the shell, it's going to be super useful. So that's kind of why I emphasize this a lot. Okay, so some quick navigation stuff. And again, this is again shown actually in topic 2, but I think it's important enough for us to kind of talk about it now. That's like kind of like, all right, let me show you quickly some stuff. Don't worry about what I just typed there. But the first thing you want to do is think of it like a directory. You'll hear me say directory. That just basically means a folder in your computer. So you can see here is that I have Flatiron Data Science School Curriculum Resources. This is actually a folder I have. And I can actually look at the current directory, which is basically just a dot, which basically says, well, I shouldn't show that. Basically, we reference like directories by either by name or by reference, because they have a hierarchy. Is that you can imagine like a folder within a folder within a folder, right? Or the folder above it, okay? is that it helps us navigate. So we'll either say, hey, here's the exact name of this folder directory, or say, hey, this is where the folder is in relationship to the where I am right now. So a good visual example of this is just kind of something like this, is that you might have, for example, we call like the root directory right here, okay? And then we have these different folders within folders. So like in this one folder on top, there's the bin folder, the boot, the dev, the et cetera, you know, etc, home, and all that stuff. And inside this home, you might have Eve, Bob, and Alice, right? So you can see that there are folders within folders, and we can navigate through this. You'll see these little funky arrows right here. They're technically ways to like have folders that don't necessarily like have a easy way to navigate, like very strict structure. These are called like symbolic links and stuff like this, but don't worry about it too much. But the main thing is that wherever you see this connection, you can connect into that folder. So just to kind of show you a little bit, I'm going to show you a few commands first. So I'll put this up here. Is that the first thing we can do is pwd, which basically stands for your working directory. Like, what is your current working directory? And you can see this long source right here, which is basically I'm in my home folder, which is in Victor G, which is in developer, which is in workspace, which is in Flatiron, which is in lessons, which is in Flatiron School data science curriculum resources. So each of these slashes right here, and note that they are a forward slash. Those forward slashes basically represent a full, new directory each time, okay? So this tells me, pwd tells me, where are you, okay? Now cd, you see the C? CD stands for change directory, CD, right? So I can actually say, like I mentioned up here, I can say cd into the current directory, which is just this guy right here. And in my case, I actually have it labeled right here so you can see right here, but not everyone's prompt. This is called a prompt. It's kind of like a little extra information to let you know what's going on. Won't be the same. But if I want to go now one level above, right? Well, what would be the directory above? Lessons. Okay, you guys see that? You're going to see that how the one directory before Flatiron School, where I'm at right now, is lessons. Just give me a thumbs up if that makes sense. Okay, cool. So I can actually do cd ... 2 periods. That means look at the directory, like change the directory to the directory above Flatiron School, which gives me lessons. And you can see here, hey, lessons, and we can double check that with pwd. And you can see here, hey, look, there we are. This is where I currently live. Okay, does that make sense to everyone? Okay, cool. All right, if I wanted to go one level above that, right, I could do cd ... and that will get me to Flatiron. Okay, and you can see pwd. There I am. Now I'm here. Okay, does that make sense so far? Okay, so what I'm going to show you real quick is just my file system. Flatiron. Okay, so we originally were in this Flatiron curriculum resources. If I go up one level, I'm in lessons, right? And you can see in there. And if I go up another level, I'm in Flatiron. And you can see here, I have Invi set up. This is a different directory I've already made, lessons and temp. So we can actually explore a little bit in the terminal itself. We can actually do ls. And ls will list what things are in there. And you can see Invi setup, lessons, and temp. That's because I'm in this folder right here. And I'm in lessons, or I can see lessons, temp, and Invi setup. You understand that? Cool. So now let's say it's like, well, okay, I want to get like inside lessons again. Like, how do I get into there? Well, I just do cd, and I can type, make sure you have the right capitals, right? Lessons. And there you go. Now I'm in lessons. And if I click on lessons, you can see there's 0, 1 in Flatiron. If I do ls now, we should see that same thing. 0, 1 in Flatiron School. Cool. Makes sense? All right. And I'm going to do one more. Let's say like cd Flatiron. That was super long, right? You saw that really quickly. Victor's super fast at typing. No, not at all, right? Is that this is really long, right? So one thing is that a lot of systems, if you click tab and there's only one choice, it's just going to auto-complete the rest of it, which is really nice. If there's 2 possible choices, for example, let's say I had a Flatiron School dash data science and I had Flatiron School dash software, it would actually try to go complete. It will stop until it's like, hey, whoa, you got to type something else because I don't know which one to go into. You can also do flat and then this asterisk, which is like the wild card. Basically says like match cd flat whatever the rest is. And since there's only one thing in here, you can see if I do this, it would actually go into Flatiron School. Make sense? Cool. All right. So one other thing I'll show you is that, let's say, so I'm going to go back up to lessons, right, which is this directory. I can also ls, and you can do something called a flag, and the flag starts with a dash. Okay. So I'm still doing ls here, which just lists what the things are. But I kind of don't like sometimes it's like, was it horizontal? I like it vertical because it gives me extra information, or like helps my mind think of things. And you can see I do ls-l. And this way it labels each one in a vertical part. And you can actually see there's some extra information. Don't worry too much about what this is right now. Just know that this is basically how, who's allowed to write and read this information. So that's what's going on here, which is why I think Victor G is me and stuff like this, how much memory it's staying, and then like when was the date of creation, all that stuff. But the main thing is like, oh, I can actually see the files right here. There's also a little flag called -A. And -A will show you hidden files. So there's actually, by default in a Unix system, anything that starts with a dot will be a hidden file automatically. So if I actually go into Flatiron School here, and I'm just going to clear this, clear just erases everything above so I don't have to, like it's a little easier for us to read it. If I do ls, which is going to be a lot for the record, you can see there's a few things in here. But if I do ls-a, you can actually see there's those two dots, which is basically the directory above and the current directory. It's a way for us to reference it. You also see this .get and this .ipnb checkpoints and this .getignore. These are hidden files, and in this case are hidden folders, hidden directories. And the -a allows us to see those hidden folders. If I go into here, you actually see there's no .get, no .getignore, no .ipn checkpoints. So the idea there is it's hidden usually from the user itself, and that this can be really useful because sometimes, you know, we as data scientists need to interact with those hidden files. They're usually hidden because developers don't want just an average person to be able to like mess around with those because those could be important files and stuff. Okay, cool. All right, so there's a few other things I can show you. Let's see here, a few more minutes, so make sure we get that. Oh, one last thing. I can also combine, you remember -l, right? I can also do ls-l in A, which basically will list them out like that. Also the hidden files. So you can see you can combine flags together sometimes too. Okay, so you'll see me use a lot of that. All right, and clear just kind of clears everything. All right, so let's actually check out a file in this case. So we actually have, in this case, a README file. You can see in this part, if I do ls, you can see the README file, .md, that's just a file. I can actually check out what's in that file. And this is really useful for like a CSV or like some tabular data. Like imagine like an Excel sheet and you download it, right? And you want to check out what the information is. We can actually check out like the first bit, right? So this is kind of what that head does. So I can do head readme. So head is the command, readme is the actual file name. And I do this, and you can see it shows me the first, in this case, the first 10 lines of that file. And that allows me to just get an idea of what that's in there. Especially like imagine like an Excel sheet, right? You have like the headings. That's really important to do the head, right? So you can actually see what's on there. You can also do this, for example, this stops right here. It's like, well, what if I want to see if there's more to that file? I could do either more readme, and you can see here is the first few lines. And then if I actually use my mouse, or I should say my space bar, I can actually kind of like page through the file itself. So you can see I'm actually seeing more and more of this file. Okay, and then I can hit the letter Q, and that'll quit me, and then I can type stuff again. So I can clear. Okay, you can also do the same thing with less. Less is more, as the saying goes. So you can actually see more of this information. I can actually use my key, my little arrow key here, and I'll use my space bar too. So the idea there is I can actually go through this file really quickly. So the nice thing about that is that you actually don't have to open up this huge file. So imagine you have a gigabyte or larger file, and you just want to see the first like line. If you try to open up like a 10 gigabyte file, your computer might crash, right? Depending how big your computer is. But with head, it's just going to load the first bit of that file, and it's not going to try to do anything special. So have fun with that and everything. You can't break anything necessarily with head, or more or less. Then we have some editors, which are called Nano, VI, and Cat. I think I'll save that for another time, but just know that basically those commands like Nano and like VI, so I like using Vim or VI or Vim, you can actually edit files. So I can do like VI oops, readme. And now I can actually look at the file and I can actually edit it. So I can actually change things up and stuff. Now, VI, a lot of people, if anyone's had any VI or Emacs, you know, if you're familiar with any of that stuff, it has their own set of commands and stuff like that. So I normally, oops, I changed things. So it's saying, hey, I normally say don't use VI when you're first doing it. Nano is usually a little bit easier for people to do if you have to edit stuff in here. And you can see I can edit things and I can, you know, this little arrow, you see that little like arrow right here in this guy right here, that means control. So if I wanted to exit, I can just do Control X and you say, hey, do you want to save this? In this case, I say no. So I'll click no or N and it goes no. So you can kind of edit things in here. This is not usually how you edit stuff, but it's useful to know that you can do that kind of stuff. I'll skip over cat because cat's a little more powerful you can do, but you'll see in the curriculum people use cat. Cat is kind of like head in some ways, except it reads the whole file. So if I do cat readme, you can see this whole thing. You can also, people usually use cat to like what we call read it into a file. So like all this stuff can be saved into a new file with these two, with certain commands. I'm not gonna go through that detail right now because I don't want to blow your heads too much because I know there's a lot going on. All right, cool. All right, how are we feeling about things I've shown so far? The main thing I'd say is PWD, CD, and LS. If you know those things, you're in a good solid shape. All right, I think I saw mostly thumbs up. At least the 4 people I see when I'm on this page at a time. Okay. All right, so I know we're an hour. I actually don't remember. Does anyone remember? Is this for an hour? Okay, it's an hour. So technically right now we're at like close to an hour, but we're gonna keep going. We all good with that? So we're kind of technically going into office hours and go a little bit longer. All right, cool, so I'll keep going. So I'm just gonna mention some make changes and stuff like that. So this is also with the command line. So I'm just mentioning is that you'll see things like you can make a directory. So for example, if I want to make a directory, you can do mkdir, make directory, and I'm just going to call it like A. You can see here, I should see it in here. There it is. You can see I made a directory called A, right? You can also, in a similar way, make a file. So I can do touch A. I'll go a.text just so make people feel comfortable. And you can see a.text here. And you'll see in my file now, say, hey, there's my a.text. And note that just creates a blank file. So it's a nice kind of thing to say, hey, just touch that file, just make a quick file. You can also copy a file. So say I copy readme. I can copy that into new copy. I've got .md. Oops. So that you can see here, it makes a new copy right here. Oh, I named it a weird thing. That's okay. So you can see like I can make some stuff really quickly. And then cat, like I mentioned, I'm not going to go through that because it's a little complicated. We can also move files around. Move also allows you to rename files. So for example, I could say, oh, this is an ugly looking, I don't know what I did right here, right? So let me just like rename that. I can do MV, and then I'm going to use my tab so that auto completes, right? So let's move that file, and I'm going to move it to new. Sorry, I just want to make sure this is easy for us to read and understand. Oh, I know what's happening here. Okay, move new copy, and then move it to new copy.md. Sorry, my setup's a little weird right now, so it's kind of overwriting itself. But trust me, I did type in this exactly. And you can see here, it renamed it now. I can also move this. Let's say if I go to move new copy, I can move that into a directory. So let's just move that into directory A. And you can see here, it's gone here, but if I look into A, there it is. Okay, so again, you can kind of move things around without having dragging and stuff like this. This might take some time to get used to thinking this way, but it's actually really useful, especially when you don't have the benefit of using like a GUI like this.
Quick question.
Yeah.
So is it like overwriting the file, or is it like?
That's a good question. It actually is when you're saying like when I did this MV, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually moving, like to get technical, it's moving the reference to that file. So it's not like it doesn't take up extra memory to say, hey, take this file, copy it, and now delete the original reference, if that makes sense. And instead of saying, oh, let's just move this thing, say this thing will be in this place. So MV can be pretty quick. Sometimes again, I'm not an expert, right? Like I always say like there's always things I don't know. I'm sure there's cases where MV will use more memory. So if you move a very large file, but in general, if you're just moving like renaming it, or you're moving to a new location and it's on the same disk, it's just moving the, like, this is getting to kind of computer sciencey zone. It's moving the reference to that. So it's kind of like when I say that this is in the directory A, the computer doesn't actually like physically move the files on some, digital disk or whatever to some new location. All it does is says, hey, it tells like something like literally called a pointer. It says, hey, instead of pointing here for A, instead point over here. And that the computer says, oh, that means it's moved over here. So that way it doesn't have to actually move things around. Hopefully then just like completely go over people's mind. In short, you don't have to worry too much about it, but it does actually shouldn't make a new copy of it. If you do copy though, just know that will literally copy it over. So that could take some time if you have a very large file.
Thank you.
No problem. All right, good question, by the way. All right, and last thing is this RM. So I'm going to tell you right now, do not use RM. Don't use RM until you feel really, really comfortable in what you do. Remember how I joked a little bit? It's like your computer will let you do what, like the terminal will let you do whatever you want, and it won't really ask questions. It's like, oh yeah, like whatever you want, dude. Like I'll go for it. RM is one of those things. RM will delete things, but it does not confirm, at least by default, what you're removing. So for example, if I want to remove a.text, I can do rm a.text. Boom, it's gone. Is it in the trash? Nope, it's gone. There's technically ways to like get back this file, but you should think when you use rm, it is like gone. It is erased from the universe. Thanos snapped his fingers, and now it's gone completely. How old is that reference now? It's not too old. I'd say it's still relevant. But anyway, RM like really removes things. You can do the same thing with directories, but if you notice, if let's say I want to remove this A, right? I can do RMA, but you'll notice it'll give me a little warning. It's, hey, cannot remove A. It is a directory. So it turns out RM like doesn't let you do this directly. You can actually force it to say, hey, remove this directory A. So that's what this -F is. And it says, hey, you can't do that. It's like, oh, that's right. I have to do it recursively. So this basically what this -RF is going to force it to remove everything in A itself. So if I do this, boom, it's gone. No confirmation, nothing safe. I will show you one thing that you should never do. But this right here deletes your whole computer without confirmation. All your files, everything, because just show you guys real quick, this is my root directory. So this basically says remove and force it recursively, everything in this directory, completely remove it, get rid of it all. And the computer goes, all right, I'll do it for you. And it will do it. So don't do that. But I think it's worth showing you guys now to say like what kind of power that actually has, because it is a little too it's a little too powerful sometimes. So just be aware. So I would say at this stage, don't use RM, but know that it exists. Okay, cool. All right, let's hear extra. Man, so this is kind of fun, like as you get to learn more stuff. Man, for example, let's say ls, like I forgot what ls does. You can do man ls, and that's the manual for the ls command. So it actually tells you a whole bunch of way too much extra stuff and see all the different things you can do, all the different flags and all this crazy stuff. So as you get more and more used to the terminal and you see new commands and stuff like this, you can actually pull up the manual for that command. There's also SSH, which we're not going to do too much of, but just know this is basically a way to log into another terminal instance. So this is really useful when you're actually looking at like a server in the cloud. So you'll see people talk about SSH a lot. So just kind of know that's what's going on here too. Okay. Once you have Jupyter Notebook installed, you will actually be able to say Jupyter and then Notebook. And this will actually launch a notebook here. And I think you guys can see my whole screen, right? Yeah, okay. So you saw this little notebook pop up here. That's actually how I can access this notebook. In fact, usually it pops up automatically, but you can also just copy this directly and then actually open this up. And note that that local host just means it's on your own computer. No one else can see it unless they're on your network as well, which is more like you have to allow them to do that stuff. So, and to quit this notebook, I can quit it. You can server stop, and you can see here, server stopped here. Note that when you do Jupyter Notebook, like this guy, it will stop. Like you won't be able to keep typing on the terminal. So one, well, no, I'm not going to show you guys that right now because that might get you guys into more issues. I'll show you guys that tomorrow probably. All right, so I'll close this guy. Last thing on terminal or command line stuff is you can also look at previous commands. So I can actually do history. And history actually shows me all the different things I typed in the past to a limit, depending what your settings are. You can see actually, if I go even further up, you can see things that I haven't, I wasn't doing in front of you guys. You can see some previous stuff too. So kind of cool things. Like I mentioned, clear, that clears my screen, which is kind of nice when you're trying to type all over this place. And then if you notice, like sometimes I'll go kind of do this, you can see like, how are you doing that? That's just my arrow key going up and down. So I can do my arrow key up, arrow key down, and I can basically page through the history of what I've done. And so I can redo something. So for example, if I did like clear, it's like, oh, I want to do clear again, just press up. I can do it over and over again. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's kind of really basic terminal stuff, right, going forward. And that should be on git bash. Command prompt, which is not the same thing as git bash, will not work the same way. It's kind of similar, but just kind of be aware there's a difference. Windows does have PowerShell, which is a little bit different, though I think for the course, we're actually recommending git bash. So those of you who have Windows computers, you have to add a new extra thing to make those things work. Okay, cool.